look at it, analyze it, understand it, make it one of your tools, because if you ignore it, it will wipe you out.
Hi, my name's Devon. Today I own several multi-million-dollar companies. We started with $5,000 in a credit card. I don't know the easy way, I only know the hard way.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Whiteboard Entrepreneur Podcast, where I give straightforward advice to fuel the entrepreneur in all of us. Today, I want to talk about a silver bullet in business, a silver bullet in business. And you say, well, I don't even understand what that means. Well, that's because I made this thing up, right? So bear with me. In the movies and the werewolf, right? How do you kill a werewolf, right? There's like one way you can do it, and that's with the silver bullet, right? You can shoot them with 6 or 7 other bullets, doesn't matter. But if you get them with a silver bullet, boom, that kills a werewolf. And so one of the things that I do when I talk to people and I do consulting in business is one of the very first places I start is I ask them, what is the silver bullet that could kill your business? And they're like, well, I don't know. I've never thought about it. I'm like, well, before we go anywhere, let's talk about that. Right. And again, I hope you understand that, like, by listening to these podcasts, I'm not someone who dwells on the negative, right? Like, I'm not someone who ever focuses on the, well, what could happen or what if, right? Because we never want to be paralyzed by fear, right? Like, we have to be, we have to believe, we have to, realize that even if there is a silver bullet, that, we can work around it. But to me, I think it's very important that you understand your business well enough to understand what the weakness is or what is something that could potentially wipe you out. And I'll give you, the classic example, right? Like a Blockbuster video, right? Like we've talked about this before on the podcast. It's a classic, MBA study, right? Like, why did Blockbuster video crumble, right? This online ability to serve up movies, right? And so Blockbuster went from being one of the biggest, most recognizable brands and businesses in North America to wiped out like almost overnight with the internet, right? And the ability to watch movies online and places like Netflix, right? What many people don't know is that Blockbuster had the ability at some point to kind of change. And actually, I just saw recently a TikTok where the CEO is actually now doing presentations. The former CEO of Blockbuster is actually now going around talking about this idea of like, hey, the biggest mistake that we made, right? And he's sharing this with the world. But the thing is they didn't recognize what the silver bullet was that could wipe out their industry. You think about businesses like Kodak, right? And people back in the day, for those of you who don't know what Kodak is, it's giant, it's cameras and film. Primarily, most of their revenue came from film rather than even the cameras. Most of you are probably watching this going, what's film? How do you develop film? I've never even heard of that, right? And again, Kodak went from being one of the biggest names in North America, or biggest brands in North America, to being wiped out overnight because they did not recognize and think about and plan for a silver bullet event. And so I want to talk with you and challenge you to start thinking about within your business, what are those silver bullets? Because those silver bullets oftentimes can be terrifying, but they can also be an opportunity, right? They can be something that you can plan for, and they could also be something that you could maybe adopt, right? If you go back and think about Blockbuster, they had the opportunity to, instead of get shot by the silver bullet, they could have taken that silver bullet and used it as an opportunity and got into the Netflix online delivery world before everybody else did. But what happens if you listen to the CEO, they knew about this, but they rejected it, and they literally took, the ostrich in the sand approach. Have you heard about that? Ostriches, when they get scared, what they do is, instead of running away, they oftentimes take their head and bury it in the sand, and they don't want to look at the problem. Well, That's why ostriches get 8. But ostriches are also very fast, right? There's all kinds of things that they could be doing, but instead they bury their head in the sand. And I think that's oftentimes what leaders do is we look at these things that freak us out, right? I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room right now. AI right now, let's be honest, is freaking people out. Like I get all of these surveys that come in where they want to interview CEOs and business leaders or whatever, and they want to ask, hey, what's right now something that you have a lot of anxiety about? I actually put down AI. That's something that like I need to understand. I have anxiety about. I think could be a silver bullet for a lot of industries. And it was interesting. I got the report back, and literally by like 5-1, what most CEOs are worried about right now is AI, because it's this silver bullet that could potentially disrupt everyone's entire industry. And I have to be honest with you. I'm almost 52 years old now. When I hear AI and I see people show me AI, I got to be honest. What I want to do is I want to be the ostrich in the sand. I want to naturally go and bury my head in the sand, act like it doesn't exist, act like AI is evil and whatever. It's going to go away. It's not going to do anything to us. And I want to just bury my head in the sand rather than taking a step back and evaluating this potential silver bullet for an industry, for several industries, and looking at this going, okay, I need to, number one, understand it. Again, I'm 51 years old. Technology is not something that comes natural to me. So my natural tendency is to run from this, is to ignore it. But I know I need to understand it. And then I need to think about how can I utilize this? Is there something that could somehow, I could utilize AI to revolutionize what I'm doing? Or is AI something that could somehow wipe out portions of what I'm doing? And if so, what opportunity does that leave? Because when what happens is industries, when they get wiped out, they get replaced by something, right? We've talked about this before. People in the paper industry, like there were, the Dunder Mifflins of the world from The Office, right? They got wiped out because copy paper went away. But what didn't go away is actually boxes, right? Because the digital world transformed the need for paper. But what it also meant is every single day on my front doorstep, there's these boxes piling up. And so if the Dunder Mifflins of the world would have realized, hey, I could have there was this silver bullet event, this silver bullet barreling down at us right now, aimed right at us. They could take out our industry. And instead of doing something about it, they bury their head in the sand. They hope the problem goes away, and it doesn't, and it wipes them out when really they could have been looking the problem dead in the eye and going, what can we do with this? Because they should have recognized that even though paper is going away, cardboard is going somewhere else. And they could have turned all of their industry into this cardboard and packaging and boxing. And they could have evolved. And what I'm challenging you to do, and I'm challenging myself to do, is to look for these silver bullet events and these silver bullet things that companies face, right? Like, so I know right now there's a lot of people like in videography that are freaked out with what's going on with the editing world and video and AI. And I would tell you, hey, instead of just saying, oh, it's dumb, it's not good, it's not, it doesn't do as good of a job and blah, 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 it's never going to replace people. Look at it, analyze it, understand it, make it one of your tools, because if you ignore it, it will wipe you out. But if you understand it and you learn how you can adopt it, perhaps you could be the next Netflix, and you grab that silver bullet and you use it against the competition. And all of a sudden that silver bullet that was aimed at you is now your gun is your weapon that you can use. And, or at the very least, you can adopt and get ahead of it and modify and change your offerings and services and adopt new pricing strategies and all kinds of different strategies to deal with what potentially may be a silver bullet event for your industry. Listen, I know this is scary. I don't even like doing this podcast. I've had this as something to talk about for a long time, but it freaks me out, right? Like, I'm one of these people that's like, I'm intimidated. I'm intimidated by these silver bullet events. I would prefer to ignore it, but I forced myself to do this podcast today because it's something that I have to do. It's something that I have to evaluate. And I'm going to encourage you as an entrepreneur, as someone who's a leader in your field, in your industry, and you're out there on the front lines, to not be afraid of these silver bullets, but to seek them out, understand them, and see how you can adapt to them. I know this will help you if you take this type of a mindset and approach to silver bullet events. I'm Devon, and this is a Whiteboard Entrepreneur Podcast.